क्यों लाइव चैट में देख पा रहा हूँ? पता नहीं क्या है यार, परेशान हो गया मैं। क्या बाबू क्या हो रहा है? तो हेल इसमें क्या लिखा? यू नीड टू dockable window on the menu bar. What is this? What? How do I say it? Let me mail him. She's saying. मेरी आवाज आ रही है? Am I live or not? मेरी आवाज आ रही है? Am I live or not? Am I live or not? मेरी आवाज आ भी रही है? Live or not? Am I live or not? मेरी आवाज आ भी रही है? Live or not? हम चैट जीपीटी से ही पढ़ेंगे, ऑफ कोर्स। एक विंडो और चाहिए होती चैट जीपीटी को, दो में काम बनता है। क्या थंबनेल आ रहा है मेरा? Let me see it. यहाँ मैंने टाइटल से ब्रेड डाल रखा है, क्या मूव बनूं? यार क्या लगे? पढ़ना शुरू करें फिर? क्या कहते हो guys? कैम लूज कर दिया था। और मेरी आवाज़ कौन सी वाली आ रही है? ग्लोबल। यार ये टैब वाली, टैब साउंड खींच रहा है क्या? स्पेस डेस्क कनेक्शन लॉस्ट। यार ये गायब हो गया इसमें, डिस्प्ले टैब के संग गायब हो गया, वापस आ गया। क्या बात है? अच्छा जी। लॉल, ग्लिच है क्या ये कोई? हैंग हो गया। How do I off my mic?
Now let's talk more about OOPS concept. Now OOPS basically stands for object-oriented programming. Now in object-oriented programming, we have talked about object, class, encapsulation, right? Now let's talk more concepts. Now one of the most important thing in the concept of OOPS is called inheritance. Now what is inheritance? Now there are two words actually here which will confuse people. Is code from here and all gone. And let me also make sure that this is empty. Gone. So we have a very simple method which is main here. Now what I want to do is I want to take the same example of calculator here. So let me create a class called calc. And of course I can just create this thing in some other files as well that actually makes sense. But just to keep it simple, I'm using the same file here. So we got a class called calculator, and in this I can add some methods and some variables. So let's say I will define some methods here, and I'll say public int, it can add two numbers, it will accept two integers as well. I'll say n1, n2. So we got two variables, right? And then I can just return n1 plus n2. Okay. Now let's say in this calculator we have two methods. One is add and one is sub, which is sub here, and there will be a subtraction operation. So we got two methods, right? Now one thing to remember, if you look at our file explorer, every time you get a file, it also creates a class file. So for every class in your code, it will have a class files. We have used a calculator, a computer, human, student before, and that's why we have all these classes. What I will do is I will just delete them. Okay, so you can see all these classes are gone. In fact, let me also delete the demo one to see what happens. And that's fine. You can also delete all the class files. So every time you compile the code, it will also create a class files for you. Let me show you that. So I will say Java C, and if I mention the file name, which is demo.java, the moment I say enter, it will create two class files because we have two classes. If I go to Explorer, you can see we got demo.class and we also have calc.class. Now when you run this code, if you say Java and if you say demo, it will just run the class files. And as you can see, we don't have any code here for calculator, so it will only run the demo class. And that's how it works. So if I just try to write this code here, which we already have, and if I try to create object of it, let's try creating object of it. In fact, let me do one more thing before we start. For this example, let me cut this part and create a new file. And let me say this is calc.java. And yes, we have this code here. So you can see now we have two files. And before I continue, I will just delete this class files again. Okay, class file deleted. And now let me just compile this code once again. So if you can see, when I'm compiling it, it is only compiling the demo file. It is not compiling the class.java, right? But when I create an object of it, if I create an object of calc obj equal to new calc, of course, if you want to use it, we have to create object first. And now if I recompile this, and let's look at the class files, we got the class file for class as well. So if you are not using calc, it will not compile it. It will just say, hey, my responsibility is to compile the Java file, I'm doing it. But if you want to work with the class, the calc.class as well, or calc.java as well, you have to create object, and that's how it compiles. Now, once the compilation done, you can simply save the value in R1, or you can say obj.add. It will add two numbers, let's say 4 and 5. And then we can also find R2, which will be the result of subtraction. So I can say sub, I will say 7 and 3. Okay, so basically you can see we got these two methods. And when you try to print the values, I will print R1 and I will give a space, and also I will basically have two more methods, which is public int multi, which will take two values, and it should return n1 into n2. And likewise, we'll have one more method here for division. So this is div, and division we have to say slash. That's it. So we got advanced calculator, which has two features. But now if I create an object of advanced calculator now instead of normal calculator, I can access multiplication and division. I can't access add and sub. And that's why you can see we got an error here. It says the method add is undefined for type advanced calculator. That means in this we don't have add and subtract. So what do you think? What could be the solution here? Think about this. So one solution which I can see is just write those two methods here. Of course we can do that. Okay, we can just copy and we can paste it here. But don't you think we are writing the same code again and again? We don't have add and subtract. So what do you think? What could be the solution here? Think about this. So one solution which I can see is just write those two methods here. Of course we can do that. Okay, we can just copy and we can paste it here. But don't you think we are writing the same code again and again?
चैट कहाँ हो रहा है इसका?
We don't have add and subtract. So what do you think? What could be the solution here? Think about this. So one solution which I can see is just write those two methods here. Of course we can.
इसको चैट कहाँ से हो रहा है? How to live chat and streaming with obvious.
This is how you can add chat into your OBS. Go to Docs at the top, click on Custom Browser Docs, name it how you want, and paste here the URL of your string chat. For Twitch chat, head to your dashboard, click on three dots at the top of your chat, pop out chat, and copy the URL. Then paste it back in the OBS, log in, and place here the URL of your string chat. For Twitch chat, head to your dashboard, click on three dots at the top of your chat, pop out chat, and on three dots at the top of your chat, head to your dashboard, click on three dots at the top of your chat, pop out chat, and copy the URL. Then
चलते हो भी How do I copy it? Now I'm in live section. Streaming software. ये सही हो गया, चलो और क्या करना है? चैट लाइव्स कब आ नहीं रहा यार? कहाँ गया था ये? Subtitles and screen. Brainstorm video ideas. Use the chat option.
This is how you can add chat into your chat. Head to your dashboard, string chat. For Twitch chat, head to your dashboard, click on three dots at the top.
कुछ और है यार, ये तो यूट्यूब था, ट्विच था, स्ट्रीम मैनेजर, मोर एक्शंस, एनालिटिक्स. चक्कर सा लग गया मुझे देख के. Advanced mode, worldwide device customization. अरे हो यार, यहाँ से मैसेज डायरेक्ट दे लिया उससे अच्छा. भाई अरे हो यार, यहाँ से मैसेज डायरेक्ट दे लिया उससे अच्छा. भाई अरे हो यार, यहाँ से मैसेज डायरेक्ट दे लिया उससे अच्छा.
Chat, head to your dashboard, click on three dots at the top.
कुछ और है यार, ये तो यूट्यूब था, ट्विच था, स्ट्रीम मैनेजर. क्या क्या विजिबल है तुम लोग यार? मैंने सब तो हाइड कर दिया था, कुछ भी विजिबल नहीं है. इनहेरिटेंस पढ़नी है मैं. टाइप्स ऑफ इनहेरिटेंस क्या होता है? इनहेरिटेंस, नीड फॉर इनहेरिटेंस, व्हाई डू वी नीड इट? has a relationship. Consider an abstract, it could be a laptop, desktop or mobile. कहीं अगर ये यूट्यूब पे इनकी सेम वीडियो पड़ी हो टेलीस्कोप की और मैं इस पे भी देखना तो क्या कॉपीराइट बन सकता है? Will I get a copyright? I am watching Udemy course on my live stream. क्या लिखता हूँ मैं? Yes, if you live stream a Udemy course directly, you are direct to face copyright issues. Udemy could have intellectual property on the rights of the lecture. Udemy says unauthorized. So what if I watch YouTube video directly? That's also the same. अच्छा ये तुम लोग को नहीं दिख रहा है मैं जो एआई से छपा हूँ दिख रहा है consider computer as an abstract method it could be laptop desktop mobile
Now, when you repeat the same code, it is called redundancy, right? We have same code multiple times. And redundancy is a crime. So make sure that you don't repeat the values. You don't repeat the methods, definition, and classes. The point is, if I don't define it here, how will I access them? That's where the inheritance concept comes into picture. So inheritance says, hey,
inheritance simple है we use extend keyword to use the inheritance concept and it's used to reduce duplicacy in code. Like if I am making a calculator and then an advanced calculator, I don't need to write the simple calculator code inside the advanced calculator code again. I simply extend that my simple calculator class into my advanced calculator. It will inherit all the properties. जी अब मैं लिखता हूँ उसे
hey, don't worry. If you already have a class called calc, you can simply say extends calc. Your job is done. Okay. So you simply say advanced calculator extends calculator, and now all the features of calculator comes in here. And there's one more beauty. Even if you don't have this Java file, that's fine. For inheritance, you need a class file, not a Java file. So even if you delete this, it will still work. Okay. So that's the first reason. Even if you don't have a code ready with you, even if you don't have a Java file, you can still use a class file. Okay. So that's the beauty of inheritance. We are simply saying extends calculator, which is this class. Now, what do you think will it work? Let's try. So you can see there's no problem. Add and subtraction working. We can add some more variables here. I can just copy this code and paste. Not on the same line. This is my R3, this is my R4, and I can just say this is multiplication. Okay, so multiplying number like, let's say is 5 and 3, okay, and then dividing the number, let's say 15 by 4. Let's do this. And now when I perform this operation, of course, I want to print R3 and R4 as well on the same line. I'm lazy to write multiple lines of code here, and R4. So we are printing everything in the same line. Let's try what happens. Compile, no problem. Run, it works. Can you see that? Addition is 9, subtraction is 4, multiplication is 15, if I'm not wrong, yeah. And division is 3. So 15 divided by 4 will give you a quotient of 3. Okay, cool. This is working, right? So this is how we use inheritance. So important thing here is this advanced calculator here is called a subclass. This calculator here is called a superclass. And to inherit, we use a keyword called extends. Okay.
Superclass is the older one class. Okay.
And this is basically a relationship of is a advanced. Okay. And this is basically to inherit, we use a keyword called extend. It's called a superclass. And to inherit, we use a keyword class. This calculator here is called a superclass.
ये वाली सब क्लास है सुपर क्लास जो है वो जो पेरेंट क्लास है इट इज यूज्ड टू रिड्यूस कोड डुप्लीकेसी वी यूज extend keyword देखो गाइस, मैं नोट्स बना रहा हूँ, उसके लिए टाइम लगेगा, वो दिखा दे रहा हूँ आपको, ठीक है, लाइक दिस। ओके जी, ऐसे करो, ऐसे जी। इसलिए मुझे टाइम लगेगा आपको एडवांस से पूरा से करने में। क्या मैं कैसे बैठा हूँ बिना बाल काटे, छोड़ो। We use extend keyword.
And to inherit, we use a keyword called extends. Okay, and this is basically a relationship of is a. Advanced calculator is a calculator, and that's why we say is an important word there. Cool. Can I have multiple classes inheriting each other? We can. That will see in the upcoming videos. At this point, we just went for a simple inheritance where we just use the feature of a superclass. We can say parent has all these two features. Child is just extending it or using it. I can say this is nepotism. So that's it from this video. I hope you enjoyed, and see you in the next video. The advanced calculator, if you can see, we don't have any other methods. Okay, now that's an issue, right? Now, so basically, we were able to do advanced calculator, which uses a feature of calculator, right? So this is extends. Now, what if in future, let's say we got one more requirement, we want to build a, let's say, scientific calculator.
भाई अगर आपको नोट्स चाहिए तो मुझे बता देना यार, नोट सारे इसके हैं मुझ पे। नोट से पढ़ना भी सही है, पर वीडियो से थोड़ा ज़्यादा समझ में आता है। नोट से ही है, इनकी शॉर्ट नोट बना लो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा। यार ये एक्रोबैट भी खुल जाता है बार बार, शॉर्टकट कैसे लग गया इसका, हटेगा कैसे? सिंगल इनहेरिटेंस। हाँ तो मैं एक बार इसकी डेफिनेशन वगैरह तो लगवा लूँगा यार। Inheritance and its concept, what contrast the purpose तो बताइए creating a new class by using an existing class. लास्ट में सब हो जाती है inheritance। कोई भी नहीं है, हाइब्रिड है और इतनी सारी इनहेरिटेंस होती है। इन्होंने सिंगल मल्टी लेवल पढ़ाई है, मल्टीपल भी है, 3 पढ़ाई है।
And I don't know the operations, so I will just say advanced calculator. I'm very bad with names, so I will just use this. And this advanced calculator will have extra feature. Let's say it also has a feature of finding the power of a number. Okay, so let's say public int. I can simply say power. Now what do you mean power? Let's say 3 is to 2. I want to do that. So it will take two numbers, the first value n1, and I also want a power, let's say n2. And let's say this will return. Okay, how do we do the power? So basically we have a math class. I can just simply use it. Math dot we have a function of power. I just take double value, but that's fine. I will just pass integer. Double also takes integer value n1 n2. And the problem is it also returns the double value. If you can see, power returns a double value. So what I will do is, let me return double value, okay? So you have a choice, you can return double value or you can just typecast it with int and you can do that. Otherwise, double is okay. So you can see we have a power function which takes this method and it calculates. Now the thing is, if I want to create object of power, where I will do that, I will just create that in demo. I will say, hey, if someone wants to try very advanced calculator, they can do that, okay? It's just that very advanced calculator, if you can see, we don't have any other methods. Okay, now that's an issue, right? Now I know in your mind you have a solution, right? You have a choice, you can just add, you can just type all these methods here, or we can come back here and say extends. Okay, now it will extend what? If we can also say calculator, but then this will only have addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, but not the feature of advanced calculator, which is, oh, it will not have this two as well, because this two is there in advanced calculator. It will only have add and sub. You can see multi and division not found. In fact, I should also have R3. In fact, this should be of type double. Double R5 equal to obj dot power by passing two values. One is, let's say, 4 is to 2. At least we know the output. It should be 16. And I also want to print R5. Oh, we are printing everything in one line. Great. And you can see multi and division not working. So if you want to make it work, you can't just extend calculator. You have to extend advanced calculator. So you can see we have multiple hierarchy here. So very advanced calculator is extending advanced calculator. Advanced calculator is extending calculator. So if you try to compile this code, let's see if this works. Compile and run. You can see it's working. You got 16 at the end. You got 0.0 because we are returning a double value. This works. So if you try to imagine this, what we are doing is, so we have a calculator, and then advanced calculator is extending calculator, and then we got very advanced calculator is extending from advanced calculator. Now this is when you are saying multiple where we are doing inheritance, right? So this is called multi-level inheritance. So basically we have multi-level inheritance here because we have multiple level. But in the earlier example, we were having just two, right? So we were having this two. Now when you say only two classes, this is called single level inheritance. And I know I became a doctor there, but you got the point, right? So if you have multiple layers, that is multi-level inheritance, and then it's a single, that is single, when you have only two classes. Now the very advanced calculator here is taking the feature from advanced calculator. Advanced calculator is taking the feature from calculator. So by default, all the calc stuff will come to very advanced, and that is multi-level. We have this A as a
कोड तो लिख ही लेंगे यार, इससे अच्छा तो मैं इनका नोट्स ही पढ़ लूंगा, छोटी छोटी चीज़ें। जाओ, why multiple inheritance is not allowed नहीं है। चलिए, अच्छा, दो क्लास एक साथ, अच्छा ये सपोर्ट ही नहीं करता यार। सिंगल ये हो गया, मल्टी लेवल ये हो गया, एग्जाम्पल सेक्शंस। अच्छा जी, तो इसमें इस क्लास में इन सबका वो, इन ऊपर के सबका वो इसने इनहेरिट कर लिया। हायरार्किकल क्या होता है? अच्छा, ऐसा हो सकता है, पर ऐसा नहीं हो सकता। हाइब्रिड, हाइब्रिड का एग्जाम्पल देना बाबू। अच्छा, हाइब्रिड नहीं। सिंगल इनहेरिटेंस टाइप्स। मल्टी लेवल है, सपोर्टेबल और हायरार्किकल भी है। यार ये सब मैं 10th में पढ़ चुका हूँ यार, क्या है सब, कुल कितने साल का गैप कर लिया है मैंने पढ़ाई में। हद है भाई। मीन्स एक्सटेंड ए, एक्सटेंड ए हायरार्किकल और मल्टी लेवल और हाइब्रिड सपोर्ट नहीं करते, मल्टीपल सॉरी। पर ये इंटरफेसेस के हेल्प से हो सकते हैं इम्प्लीमेंट। मल्टीपल हाइब्रिड डू नॉट सपोर्ट। हो गया जी। It's as simple as that. तो इससे ज़्यादा अपने जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी, ये दिस एंड सुपर बहुत है, सही प्यारा कॉन्सेप्ट लगता है। तो दिस तो वो हो गया,
In this video, let's talk about this and super. Now, this is a very
इसका मतलब हो गया माई सेल्फ।
super concept, so let's focus. So what I will do is I'll just remove all this thing just to make it simple and clear this part as well. And for this, I don't even need this particular classes, so let me just close these files and keep it simple. Okay, so we have a very simple code here. Now what I will do is, just to understand this and super, I will create a class called A. I know this is a very simple name, but just for the example, we can take them. And then we got a class B.
जिसका मतलब सिंपल ये होता है ना कि इट refers to the current object. For example, मैं कोई एग्जांपल लिखूँगा, मेरी क्लास के अंदर प्राइवेट इंट ए है और मैंने एक मेथड बनाया है, सेट इज करा है मैंने, गेट सेटर बना रहा हूँ और उसके अंदर मैंने पैरामीटर दिया है वो भी इंट ए है। तो मैं लिखूँगा दिस डॉट ए इक्वल्स टू ए। जो राइट साइड वाला इक्वल्स टू ए है वो तो मेरा पैरामीटर के लिए कंसिडर होगा, इवन दो ये सेम वेरिएबल नेम है। पर मेरा जो दिस डॉट ए है वो बाहर जो मैंने क्या कहते हैं डिक्लेयर करता है प्राइवेट इंट है, वो उसे कंसिडर करेगा।
Okay, we got two classes.
Let me check my live set. Okay, not. कंसिडर करेगा।
Okay, we got two classes.
Let me check my live set. ओके यार मुझे ओक्समेगल पे जाना पड़ेगा क्या व्यूज बढ़ाने के लिए, कंसिडर करेगा।
Okay, we got two classes. Okay, we got two classes.
लेट मी चेक माय लाइव सेट। ओके यार मुझे ओक्समेगल पे जाना पड़ेगा क्या व्यूज बढ़ाने के लिए, कंसिडर करेगा।
Okay, we got two classes.
क्या मन बना था। हाँ देख लिया अभी चैट सेटअप नहीं से आई एम डू आई एम डू। हाँ हाँ सलोनी, तेरी कॉल आ रही थी। कहाँ करी तूने, मुझे नॉर्मल कॉल करी है तूने या व्हाट्सएप? एक नॉर्मल कॉल एक भी नहीं है, अभी चेक कर लिया मैंने। क्या बढ़िया बात है। तेरा तेरे सिग्नल नहीं आ रहा है मतलब। हाँ तो क्या हुआ, कौन सा ऐप नहीं चल रहा था? मिल गया? क्या भेज दिया? प्लेटफॉर्म तो हमेशा उसी पे आती है ना, डबल टिकर हमेशा से। क्या चीज़? अब मुझ पे कॉल नहीं आई यार एक भी, वरना क्यों नहीं उठाऊंगा मैं। स्ट्रीम देख ले चल मेरी। हेलो हेलो सलोनी, स्ट्रीम देख ले मेरी चल, ठीक है? देख ले ठीक है। थक गया यार मैं तो, थोड़ा सा पानी पिया करो। ओके भाई, आप तो एंजॉय करो टेलीस्कोप भैया को हमारे। क्या दिख रहा है आप लोगों को?
And then I'm also saying that this B class extends A. Of course, we are doing inheritance here, and it makes sense because we just talked about inheritance. And then what I will do is I will create a constructor for both. Of course, we can do that, right? Now, before creating a constructor, let me say if I create object of B, of course, we can do that, right? So this B class, we got an object of B class here, and we can do that. Let me create a constructor of B here. Now, how do we create a constructor? It's very simple. You specify public, and then you say B, bracket open, and then here, I will type in B. I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible. That's why we have taken class A and B, and then a very simple statement. Now, what I will do is I will try to compile this code, and you tell me what. I'm also saying that this B class extends A. Of course, we are doing difference here, and it makes sense because just not forward. And then what I will do is I will what will be the output? Comparison done, right? If I run this code, there will be some output, right? Now think about this. We are creating the object of B, okay? We are instantiating it. And we have learned about this, that whenever you create the object, it will call the constructor of a class. So the object we are creating is of B, and we have a constructor, which is B here, which brings a statement. So of course, I'm expecting that it will like, execute the constructor, and it will. And that's why you got in B. That perfectly makes sense, and we have talked about this for a long time. The twist here is, what if I have a constructor in A as well? And here I'm printing in A. Now what do you think will be the output? Because of course, we are creating the object of B, not A. So it should call the constructor of B, and that makes sense. But if you compile this code, you will see something strange. If I compile this code and run, oh, it is also executing the constructor of A. Now that's weird for us, right? Because we are creating object of B, it should only call the constructor of B, but it is also calling the constructor of A, and that sounds weird. Now understand that, but at this point, just remember, whenever we get object of a class, it will call the constructor of subclass and superclass both. A is a superclass here, B is a subclass, it will call the constructor of both. Why? We'll talk about it in some time, but it calls the constructor of both. Now let me just add a twist here. In B, let me create a parameterized constructor, and we have seen that, right? So what is parameterized constructor? A constructor
प्लीज वो स्क्रीन इससे ज़्यादा बुरा क्या हो सकता है चल गई
which takes a value. Let's say this is n. This is a very super concept, so let's focus. So what I will do is I'll just remove all this thing just to make it simple and clear this part as well. And for this, I don't even need this particular classes, so let me just close these files and keep it simple. Okay, so we have a very simple code here. Now what I will do is, just to understand this and super, I will create a class called A. I know this is a very simple name, but just for the example, we can take them. And then we got a class B. Okay, we got two classes. And then I'm also saying that this B class extends A. Of course, we are doing inheritance here, and it makes sense because we just talked about inheritance. And then what I will do is I will create a constructor for both. Of course, we can do that, right? Now, before creating a constructor, let me say if I create object of B, of course, we can do that, right? So this B class, we got an object of B class here, and we can do that. Let me create a constructor of B here. Now, how do we create a constructor? It's very simple. You specify public, and then you say B, bracket open, and then here I will type in B. I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible. That's why we have taken class A and B, and then a very simple statement. Now, what I will do is I will try to compile this code, and you tell me what will be the output. Comparison done, right? If I run this code, there will be some output, right?
ऑल ओके दीपक दिस साइड थैंक यू भाई यार मैंने अभी चैट सेटअप नहीं करा टीवी पे देख रहा हूँ मैं चैट मूवीज देखो चैट कैसे देख रहा हूँ तो भाई वो बोल रहा है वीडियो में देख कॉपीराइट आ सकता है। अबे पर ये तो उसका है ना कोर्स, पर ये कोर्स तो यूडीमी का है ना। लुकिंग गुड वीडियो। अच्छा भाई, थैंक यू। यार कैमरा।
Now think about this. We are creating the object of B. Okay, we are instantiating it. And we have learned about this that whenever you create the object, it will call the constructor of a class. So the object we are creating is of B, and we have a constructor which is B here,
यार ये स्क्रीन फ्रीज हो जाती है मेरी बार बार, फिर फ्रीज हो गई।
which brings a statement. So of course, I'm expecting that it will like, execute the constructor, and it will. And that's why you got in B. That perfectly makes sense, and we have talked about this for a long time. The twist here is, what if I have a constructor in A as well, and here I'm printing in A. Now, what do you think will be the output? Because of course we are creating the object of B, not A, so it should call the constructor of B, and that makes sense. But if you compile this code, you will see something strange. If I compile this code and run, oh, it is also about this and super. Now, this is a very super concept, so let's focus. So what I will do is I'll just remove all this thing just to make it simple and clear this part as well. And for this, I don't even need this particular classes, so let me just close these files and keep it simple. Okay, so we have a very simple code here. Now what I will do is, just to understand this and super, I will create a class called A. I know this is a very simple name, but just for the example, we can take them. And then we got a class B. Okay, we got two classes. And then I'm also saying that this B class extends A. Of course, we are doing inheritance here, and it makes sense because we just talked about inheritance. And then what I will do is, I will create a constructor for both. Of course, we can do that, right? Now, before creating a constructor, let me say, if I create object of B, of course, we can do that, right? So this B class, we got an object of B class here, and we can do that. Let me create a constructor of B here. Now, how do we create a constructor? It's very simple. You specify public, and then you say B, bracket open, and then here, I will type in B. I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible. That's why we have taken class A and B, and then a very simple statement. Now, what I will do is, I will try to compile this code, and you tell me what will be the output. Comparison done, right? If I run this code, there will be some output, right? Now, think about this. We are creating the object of B. Okay, we are instantiating it. And we have learned about this that whenever you create the object, it will call the constructor of a class. So the object we are creating is of B, and we have a constructor which is B here, which brings a statement. So of course, I'm expecting that it will like, execute the constructor, and it will. And that's why you got in B. That perfectly makes sense, and we have talked about this for a long time. The twist here is, what if I have a constructor in A as well, and here I'm printing in A. Now, what do you think will be the output? Because of course, we are creating the object of B, not A, so it should call the constructor of B, and that makes sense. But if you compile this code, you will see something strange. If I compile this code and run, oh, it is also executing the constructor of A. Now that's weird for us, right? Because we are creating the object of B, it should only call the constructor of B, but it is also calling the constructor of A, and that sounds weird. Now understand that.
अभी आ रहा हूँ भाई, मैं काम पड़ गया, शॉप पे कस्टमर है।
But at this point, just remember, whenever you get object of a class, it will call the constructor a constructor which takes a value. Let's say this is n. Okay, and here I will print
We tried several times to play your video, but there is an
in b in.
what the उसकी क्वालिटी कैसे डिग्रेड हो गई? ये मेरी FPS डाउन कैसे हो गई इतनी? क्या हो रहा है? मेरी आवाज क्यों नहीं आ तो रही है? हाँ, अरे यार रुक जाओ, कर रहा हूँ. मेरी वीडियो प्ले क्यों नहीं हो रही?
In A and in B. Why not in B int is because when you are creating the object, you're not in A and in B. Why not in B int is because when you are creating the not passing any value here. Basically, you are calling a default constructor. But if you pass a value, let's say 5, in this case, you are specifically mentioning, hey, I'm creating an object of B and I'm passing an integer here. So it will call the constructor of B, which takes integer. Now, by doing this, if I run this code, you can see it is printing in A and in B int. Okay, that actually makes sense. It will call the constructor of A. But what if I also have a parameterized constructor in A as well, which takes a n, and it that actually makes sense. It will call the constructor of A. But what if I'm creating an object of B and I'm passing an integer here? So it will call the constructor of B, which takes integer. Now, by doing this, if I run this code, you can see it is printing in A and in B int. Okay, that actually makes sense. It will call the constructor of A. But what if I also have a parameterized constructor in A as well, which takes a n parameterized constructor? It was calling a default constructor. That's what I'm assuming at this point. Now, when you have a parameterized constructor for both, for A and B both, now, there is an expectation that it will print in A int and in B int, and that's what I'm thinking. I'm not sure what you're thinking. Let's try. Let's see if this works. Oh no, what is happening here? It is calling the parameterized constructor of B. That actually makes sense. But why the default constructor of A? It should have been called this one, right? Let's understand why it is first of all calling the constructor of parent class. Why in the first place? The thing is, and remember this point, every constructor in Java has a method which is there, even if you don't mention. Okay, and that method is super. Now, this method is there even if you don't mention. You can imagine that's like a John Cena. I don't know if you know the John Cena memes, but that's just that you can't say it. Okay, so super is there, you can't say it. Even if you don't mention super, it is there. So by default, every constructor, the first statement is super. And every constructor, not just this one, every constructor. Here as well, super. Okay, so every constructor will have super. Same goes for A as well. It will also have super and super. Irrespective of which class it is, it will have this statement super. Even if you don't mention, it is there. Okay, that's the point to remember. Now let's try to understand how it is working. Let's do a dry run. The moment you execute this statement, what is happening? It is calling the constructor of B, which is parameterized. So it is calling this particular method. So when you execute this method, the first thing it sees is super, not the system.out.println. What it is saying is super. Now what is super? Now super method simply means call the constructor of a super class. So let me repeat, super means call the constructor of a superclass. Now, what's there in superclass? This is a superclass. It is calling the constructor of a superclass, but which one? The parameterized one. Sorry, the default one. If you can see, we are saying default. We are not passing any parameter here. So it is calling this particular constructor, and that's why it is printing in A. And that's why you can see the output. It is first printing in A, and then once it executes the A constructor, it will execute the remaining part of B constructor, which is this part in B int, and that's why we got in B int. Okay, that means if I don't want to call this constructor, if I want to call the parameterized one, we have to do only one change, which is what if in this super you pass a number? So n is a value, right? It will have a value. The same value you're passing to this super. Now what we are saying is, hey Java, I know you're going to execute the superclass constructor, but I'm passing a parameter there. So now this time you have to call the parameterized constructor. By doing those changes, let's compile and run. Here we go. It is printing in A int and in B int. So super is a very handy tool. It's there already. You don't have to mention that. But if you want to make some changes, of course you have to mention. So if you want to pass a parameterized constructor, then explicitly you have to mention super. I hope that made some sense. Okay, now what I want is, I want to call the default constructor of B. Okay, I'm not passing any parameter here. I'm calling a default constructor of B. So of course, if I execute this, if I compile and run, you can see it's printing in A and in B. Why? It's because when you're calling the default constructor here, in default constructor of B, it will execute first. It is calling this super. That means it is calling this particular constructor, which is printing in A, and then it is printing in B. It will continue with this execution of constructor B, right? But what I want now is, I know you got the point. What I want is, I want to execute in A int, and then I want to print in B. So the output which I want is in A int in B. So how can we play with that? So what if here, if I pass a value, let's say 5 or any number doesn't matter. If I pass a number, it will try to create object of B with a default constructor. It will execute the default constructor. But now we are calling a superclass constructor by passing a value. So which constructor will be called? Of course, the second one. And it will print in A int in B. Let's try, compile, run, and that's what we got. So that's how we can play with super. And that is fun, right? Now I have a question for you. Maybe you have observed it or not. See, in B class, when we are saying super, it actually makes sense because we have a superclass for B. Okay? This is A here is a superclass. But when you say super for A, what is a superclass for A? We have not mentioned anything here, right? Okay, now that's why we have to introduce a new concept here. Every class in Java, let me repeat, every class in Java extends the object class. So object is a class in Java, which has a lot of methods. We'll talk about those methods later. But every class in Java extends this class, even if you don't mention. So even if you don't mention this, it is extending it. Again, you can imagine this as a John Cena. It's there, you can't see it. Okay. So even if you don't mention or you mention, it's the same thing. So when you say super here, you're basically calling a constructor of the object class. Okay, in object class also we have a constructor. This is what you're calling. Cool, right? So even if you don't mention, it's there. Now you might be thinking, the B class must be extending A and object both. No, B class extends A class extends object. So this is multi-level inheritance. Okay, there's no multiple still now. Okay, so yeah, that's how it works. We have object class. So this super represents the constructor of the object class. So we have talked about super, but what is this? Okay, now let me introduce this here. The output which I want now is, I want to execute both the constructor of B. Okay, so let me just keep it default now. Let me say super. I want to execute both the constructor of B. So I want only one object, okay? With one object, can I execute both the constructor? Of course, I want to execute the constructor of A, which is default, but I want to execute the constructor of both B. So what I'm saying is, I want in A, I want in B, and in B int. Is it possible? For that, what we can do is, see, we are creating the constructor. Let me pass a value here. Let me pass 5. So of course, by doing that, what we're doing is we are calling the constructor, which is the parameterized one, and we are calling super. And that's what is calling the superclass constructor. But then we have one more method called this. We have talked about this keyword, right? Now what this will do is, this will execute the constructor of a same class. Let me repeat. This will execute the constructor of a same class, which is this one. We are not passing any parameter, so it will call the constructor of a same class. And then this constructor is calling the constructor of a superclass. Let's try if this works. Compile, run, and you can see that we got in A, in B, in B int. I mean, of course, this will execute first.
गलती कर दी है मैंने यार लाइव क्लिप शेयर करके तुम्हें। रैंडम कर रहा कुछ भी। मेरी पूरी स्क्रीन शेयर क्यों नहीं हो रही? ठीक है भाई।
this method, but this particular method B constructor is executing this, which is the default constructor. The default constructor executes the super, which goes here. It will execute all the constructor of a superclass. Now, what's in superclass? This is a superclass A, which takes integer. Now, by doing this, if I run this code, you can see it is printing in A and in B. Don't even need this particular classes. So let me just close these files and keep it simple. Okay, so we have a very simple code here. Now what I will do is, just to understand this and super, I will create a class called A. I know this is a very simple name, but just for the example, we can take them. And then we got a class B. Okay, we got two classes. And then I'm also saying that this B class extends A. Of course, we are doing inheritance here, and it makes sense because we just talked about inheritance. And then what I will do is I will create a constructor for both. Of course, we can do that, right? Now, before creating a constructor, let me say if I create object of B, of course we can do that, right? So this B class, we call an object of B class here, and we can do that. Let me create a constructor of B here. Now, how do we create a constructor? It's very simple. You specify public, and then you say B bracket open, and then here I will type in B. I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible. That's why we have taken class A and B, and then a very simple statement. Now, what I will do is I will try to compile this code, and you tell me what will be the output. Compilation done, right? If I run this code, there will be some output, right? Now think about this. We are creating the object of B. Okay, we are instantiating it, and we have learned about this that whenever you create the object, it will call the constructor of a class. So the object we are creating is of B, and we have a constructor which is B here, which brings a statement. So of course, I'm expecting that it will execute the constructor, and it will, and that's why you got in B. That perfectly makes sense, and we have talked about this for a long time. The twist here is, what if I have a constructor in A as well, and here I'm printing in A. Now, what do you think will be the output? Because of course we are creating the object of B, not A, so it should call the constructor of B, and that makes sense. But if you compile this code, you will see something strange. If I compile this code and run, oh, it is also executing the constructor of A. Now that's weird for us, right? Because we are creating the object of B, it should only call the constructor of B, but it is also calling the constructor of A, and that sounds weird. Now understand that, but at this point, just remember, whenever you get object of a class, it will call the constructor of subclass and superclass both. A is a superclass here, B is a subclass, it will call the constructor of both. Why? We'll talk about it in some time, but it calls the constructor of both. Now let me just add a twist here. In B, let me create a parameterized constructor, and we have seen that, right? So what is parameterized constructor? A constructor which takes a value. Let's say this is n. Okay, and here I'll print in B int, because we have a constructor which takes an integer parameter. I'm just printing just int just to differentiate between these two statements. Now with this, if I compile this code and run, what do you think what will be the output? Compile and run. Still it is in A and in B. Why not in B int? Is because when you are creating the object, you're not passing any value here. Basically, you are calling a default constructor. But if you pass a value, let's say 5, in this case, you are specifically mentioning, hey, I'm creating an object of B and I'm passing an integer here. So it will call the constructor of B, which takes integer. Now by doing this, if I run this code, you can see it is printing in A and in B int. Okay, that actually makes sense. It will call the constructor of A. But what if I also have a parameterized constructor in A as well, which takes n, and it also prints in A int. Now, since we were not having a parameterized constructor, it was calling a default constructor. That's what I'm assuming at this point. Now, when you have a parameterized constructor for both, for A and B both, now there is an expectation that it will print in A int and in B int, and that's what I'm thinking. I'm not sure what you're thinking. Let's try. Let's see if this works. Oh no, what is happening here? It is calling the parameterized constructor of B. That actually makes sense. But why the default constructor of A? It should have been called this one, right? Let's understand why it is first of all calling the constructor of parent class. Why in the first place? The thing is, and remember this point, every constructor in Java has a method which is there, even if you don't mention. Okay, and that method is super. Now this method is there even if you don't mention. You can imagine that's like a John Cena. I don't know if you know the John Cena memes, but that's just that you can't say it. Okay, the super is there, you can't say it. Even if you don't mention super, it is there. So by default, every constructor, the first statement is super. And every constructor, not just this one, every constructor here as well.
क्या बोलूं बता। बंद कर रखी थी मैंने आवाज। यार ये सर्वे भेजती रहती है पूरे दिन भर। तेरे 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 यार ये मैं ओबीएस की स्क्रीन कैसे शेयर करूं। मुझे ऑल ओवर वो करना है। अच्छा मुझे डिस्प्ले कैप्चर करना चाहिए था। नहीं हो रहा डिस्प्ले कैप्चर यार। क्या है ये। आई वांट टू। चलिए हो गया। बनवंत में डीएसए। सुपर एंड if we don't write super। and calls the parent class. भैया आपकी एक ही स्क्रीन क्यों खुली है? मतलब और कितनी खोल? मेरी स्पेस डेस्क खुला हुआ है. Can we use both this and super in the same structure? No, we cannot. In same constructor. Causes a compile time error. इतना काफी है एक टॉपिक को पढ़ना यार. दिमाग खराब हो गया.
So once we talked about inheritance and method overloading as well, right? We have talked about method overloading. In this video, let's talk about method overriding. That's right. So we have two different method overloading and method overriding. So let's talk about overriding here. So for that, what I will do is I will just try to keep it simple again, and let's use the class A. And inside this class A, let's say we have a method. So I will just remove this part, and here I will say public void show. Just to keep it simple, I'm using a very simple example here, which is a show, which prints something. Let's say it prints in show. Okay. Now, if you have a method inside a class, of course, you can create the object and you can call the method, right? And we have seen that. So let's say if I go back to my main method, if I say a obj equal to new a, and I can simply say obj dot show, and it will work, right? And it should work. That's what we have done from a long time. So let's compile this code and run, and you can see it prints in show. Just to keep it simple, we went with a very simple example. Now, what I want to do is I want to get a class which is class B. Keep it simple again. Call the method, right? And we have seen that. So let's say if I go back to my main method, if I say a obj equal to new a, and I can simply say obj dot show, and it will work, right? And it should work. That's what we have done from a long time. So let's compile this code and run, and you can see it prints in show. Just to keep it simple, we have went with a very simple example. Now what I want to do is, I want to get a class which is class B, and I want this class B to extend class A. And of course, when you talk about inheritance, this method show, it also will be available inside class B, right? So if I create object of class B here instead of A, it will also work because that's how inheritance works, right? So if I go back, compile, and run, it works. You can see we got in show. What I will do now is, I will also print in A show just to differentiate that this is getting printed in the A class, okay? Now the thing is, what if you want to have a different definition of it? Okay, why do we need different definition? Let's say we got two methods here, public void config. So let's say we have this method which is called config. I don't know what it will do. Just to keep it simple, I will just say s out and I will say this is in a config. Okay, and let's say they have different implementation, they have different statements. At this point, we are not focusing on statements. We are here to understand the concept, right? So let's say it does something, show method, and config does something, and I can actually call both the methods, not just one. I can call config as well. Okay, and if I compile and run this code, it works. You can see it says in a show in a config. Now let's say I want a different definition for show, okay, not for config. So basically what I want is when it comes to B and when I call show, it should print in B show. How do I do that? How do I change the execution? So what I want is when I call show, it should not call the show of A because show of A will print in A show. I want to use config as it is. So I can't even remove this inheritance. If I remove this and if I define the methods, of course I can define show, but then I want this config to be coming from A. So of course you have to keep it. You have to say class B extends A because we want config. What we don't want of A is show because it is printing in A show. I want to do something else. In that scenario, you can say public void show. You can write the same method name or maybe a different name. You can say in show one, show one, and you can print here in B show. I mean, of course, you can do this. The only thing is, if you execute this code now, it will still print in a show. You know why? It's because we are calling show, and both these methods are different. One with name show and one with name show one. Okay, that means if I call show one, then it will work. Then it will print in B show. But what I want is, I want them to have the same name. I want this method which is show should override the method here. Is it possible? And the answer is yes. In Java, we get this amazing feature where you can basically override the methods of the parent class. So of course, you want everything except this part. Okay, I'm gonna accept this show method. I want config, but I don't want show. Now let me give you one more example here. Remember when we talked about inheritance, I've used an example where I was not having any phone in my 10th standard and my father had a phone which is 3310. Now, if you ask me at that point which phone I have, I should say 3310 because that's my father's phone. But after 2 years, when I was in my 12th standard, I got my own phone. I got Motorola C168. Again, not a smartphone, but it was good. It was a very slim phone. So now if you ask me which phone I have, I will say I have Motorola C168. My father still had 3310. So here, if you can see, if someone asks my father will say I have 3310. If you ask me, I have a choice of saying 3310, but I will go for C168, which is my phone. Right? So you always give preference to your own features first. Example, if you call show here, it will execute the method of B instead of executing the method of A. So basically, this method show overrides the method of A here. And we can simply execute, compile, and run. You can see it prints in B show. Now this will make much more sense when we say we are creating not A, but we are creating a calculator, which has a method called, let's say, let me remove config for some time. Let's say that we have a method called add, and this will return a value, okay? And here, instead of printing this, I can simply accept two values. I can say int n1, comma int n2. And here, we have done this before, and that's why I'm writing this code very fast. I can say return n1 plus n2, okay? So if your class, which is, instead of saying B, I can say advanced calc, which is extending calc. It will also have some features. But let's say I want to add two numbers, which will also take int, and it will have the same parameter, okay? Because in method overloading, we have seen it can have the same method name, but different parameters. Here, in method overriding, it will be same name, same parameters as well. I mean, same type of parameters, not name, doesn't matter name. Let's say n1, n2. And it will have the same name, same number of parameters, same type of parameters, but it will have a different behavior. Let's say n1 plus n2 plus 1. I'm just adding extra 1 there. So what I want is, if I come in this section, okay, at this point I'm not overriding it, I just have add method inside calc. And if I create the object of advanced calculator by saying advanced calculator obj equal to new advanced calculator, and if I try to call the add method by passing 3 and 4, of course 3 and 4 is 7. So if I get this value somewhere, if I say int r1 is equal to, and if I print the value for r1, and again, since we have done this code before, I'm just typing it fast. Now what do you think? What will be the output? I'm passing 3 and 4. So of course, it will first search for this method add inside the same class. Of course, we don't have that method. So it will go to the upper class by saying, hey, calc, you are my parent class, I'm searching for add with you, and yes, it is available. So basically, we can just compile this code and run. You can see we got 7, and that actually works. But now, I want a different definition for add. I just want some changes. Instead of adding those two numbers, it will also add 1 at the end, okay? So if I compile this code now and run, it will print 8. So this add is overriding the add method of calculator. Okay, just remove this statement, that's extra. So this concept is called method overriding. So this method is overriding the method here. I hope that makes sense. Right? So this is method.
अच्छा जी। हम्म।
In this video, let's talk about packages. The thing is, whenever you have a file, doesn't matter is it music files or documents or code, we normally put them in a folder, right? And then we create a folder structure as well. In fact, I remember in my college days when we used to store different songs, we used to create different folders. Like, we have a songs folder, then inside that we have rock songs, DJ songs, sad songs, romantic songs. And in fact, in that as well, when you go to sad songs, we can have normal sad songs, ultimate sad songs. Okay, now that's exaggeration, but we do that, right? We create a structure there. In the same way, when you talk about Java project, you will not be creating 1 or 2 files, right? You will be having multiple files. Sometimes your project can have, let's say, 200 files, 300 files. Okay, maybe most of the time when you have a complex project. Now, how will you put all these files in one folder? You can put everything in one folder. Now, if you see our project structure here, what we did is we have this folder called codes, and in this codes we have all the files. In fact, we only have 3 files now, but just imagine we have more files. Imagine we have 100 files. It's okay to put them in one folder, but it's always better if you can create a structure where you can have few files in one folder and few files in another folder, and then you can have a folder inside a folder. Now, normally this type of pattern in Java is called packages. Normally you store files in a package. So yeah, that's right. The folder is package here. And of course, one package can be a part of another package, the way you have folders inside a folder. So how do we do that here in Java? So just to make you understand, let's say we have these 2 files, advanced calculator and calculator. Now these 2 files are related, right? They both work for the calculator. So it is a good idea to put them in one folder. Now how do you do that? You have an option here of creating a new folder. That's one way. Or what you can do is you can just come back on top of your class and say you can create a package. So the keyword which you use to create a package is called package, and you can put this class in that particular package. Let's say the package name is tools, right? So of course you can create any package name, but it should make some sense. So you can see I'm saying that they are tools. Okay, and the thing is, you can see we are getting an error. It says that declared package tools does not match the expected package. The thing is, you don't have calc inside the package. In fact, most of the IDEs will give you an option of directly, if I click on quick fix, yeah. So you can see most of the IDEs, doesn't matter which IDE you're using. In VS Code, we have this option. In most of the famous IDE, you will get this option of doing something, some red symbol or something like that. Here we have an option of quick fix. If I click on that, it says move calc.java to package tools. Okay, that is a good idea. We can click on this, and you can see it created a folder called tools. And now we can actually move this to tools as well. The only thing is when you do that, and when you go to this particular class, okay, it has already done the changes. You can see I have not written this. It is already there thanks to VS Code in the IDE. So basically you get this here. So it's always a good idea to put your classes in a package. You can create a complex structure. If you want, you can create one more folder here. Let's say we've got a folder called database, or maybe DB connections or DB classes. Or maybe you can simply say DB. Now this DB will have all the database connections. So let's say if you want to create some files which will connect with MySQL, Oracle, or it does something with database. So you can put all those classes in database folder. Okay. Now that's how you create a project structure here. Okay, the only thing is, if you have this structure here, let's say if you have calc and demo, advanced calc, and if you can see both are in a package now, the only problem you will face is if you go to demo, and you can see demo is not a part of any package. Normally, you put the main class, so the class which has a main method separately outside the package so that you can easily access other classes. Okay, when I say easily access other classes, can I do that? Can I create object of calc here? So if I say calc obj equal to new calc, which was working earlier, if you remember our previous examples, it's not working now. You can see it says calc cannot be resolved. What's wrong? The problem is demo and calc, now they are in 2 different folders. You can't directly access it. Okay, so when I say you cannot directly access it, do we have an indirect way? Yes, we have an indirect way. So what you can do is, if you see this bubble, it says import calc. That's right. If you want to use calc in your particular class, you have to say import calc. But then calc belongs where? Calc belongs to tools.calc. So basically you have to mention the package name and then you have to mention the class name, whichever you want to import. And now you can see there's no issue. How about advanced calculator? If I want to use advanced calculator obj1 is equal to new advanced calculator, okay, now you cannot access this one. You know why? It's because we have only imported calc, not advanced calculator. How will you import this? You're right. Just come back here and say import tools.advanced calculator. So whichever class you want to use, you can just import them. In fact, Java internally has a lot of classes. Example, let's say one of the classes which we're going to see in future, which is let's say list. Now when we use list, which is an inbuilt class or inbuilt interface, what is interface, we'll talk about that later. Or maybe at this point we can talk about, let's say, array list, which is a class. When we use array list and when you create object of it, I will say list is equal to new array list. And this belongs to a package, java.util. How it will folder? Multiple folders, if you can see java.lang for us, you use inbuilt. So when you're using system, we have never imported it. So when I say Go class belongs to a package java.lang, but we never imported it. The thing is, by default, every Java file will have java.lang by default imported. So even if you don't mention that, it's there. This line is there even if you don't mention. Now the thing is, it's actually not this line. What is by default is this java.lang.star. Now what is this star? Now in one particular folder, if you have multiple files, and if you yes files, you can say star. You can go in, and of course you can say star. It will import everything. Now my question to you is, if I say import other.star, now is this 2 line same? Or can I remove this? Of course, right, when you say star, it should import everything. But no, if you can see, it is giving you error. The reason is, when you say others.star, so star simply means all the files, not all the folders. Okay, so in other, if you have some files, let's say if I create a new file here, I will name this as a.java. The moment you do that, you can see this a class belongs to a2. A project is not always for your use. Sometimes you create libraries. How will you access this variable? So you can just go back to demo. So we have a, right, which has this. Now once we talk Now, once we talked about packages, it's a good time to talk about access modifiers. Now, one of
We are back, guys. Google.
The access the access modify, we have seen, in fact, we have seen two, private and public. Apart from this, we have more, we have protected and default as well. So in this video, let's try to explore them, or one or two videos. So what I will do is, initially I will start with public. Now what is public basically? Let's go to demo. And we were trying to import the packages, and of course we should do that, right? Anyway, we don't have to do that. Java.language, it comes already, so we don't have to worry about it. And now what I will do is, I will just go back to my class A. Let's work with class A now. And in this class A, you can see the class A is public, okay? And it belongs to a different package called other. And in this class, I will just create a variable called int, let's say marks. So we have this variable called marks, and the initial value for marks is 6 because we just want to access this, is it working or not. Now, how will you access this variable? So you can just go back to demo. So we have A, right, which has this code, which is simple class, and then we have a marks. Let me go back to demo. And in this, I want to access it. So I will just remove all these lines. Just want to work. In fact, tools is also not a need now. Let only work with other. And in this, let me create an object of A. Now, can I create an object of A? Yes, we can, because we can access it. And then I'm just trying to say obj dot marks. Now, when I try to do that, you can see it gives you an error. It says the field A dot marks is not visible. I mean, that's weird. It's there, right? Marks is there. The thing is, it is not public. Now, when it is not public, you cannot access it outside the package. You can see that that's the issue we got. Now, what if you have a class in the same file, or maybe in the same package? Let's say in the same package, which is of demo, I will create a file called b.java. And in b.java, let me just say, because they're the same package now, so no package is the same package basically, I will try to create a variable called int, let's say marks. Let's see if I can access this marks in demo. I will just go back here. And I will repeat the same sentence, same line, in fact, same statement with the help of B object now. This is B. The only thing is we have to use a different object name because we cannot have same. And using this obj can access marks. So you can say there's no issue. Even if marks is not public, it's no issue because they are in the same package. The moment you have a different package, and if you don't mention public, it will not work. Okay, that's the issue. You can see it is not working. Now, if you want something to be accessed outside the package, always make it public. And that's why methods, most of the time they're public. Variables should not be public, but methods should be public. Example, if I say public void show here, now show is accessible. I can use show from anywhere. Example, if I can come back here, obj.show, this will work because that's public. But if I don't write public, then it will not work. Now that's one. So public means it can be accessed from anywhere. Okay. Now apart from public, we also have private. So if I talk about private, can I use private anywhere? Private variable can be used in the same class, irrespective of the package. Okay, package is the secondary part. It can be used in the same class. I can't even use outside the class. Example, let's say if you look at this B and if you look at this demo, they're the same package, right? But now, if I create a private variable here, if I make this as a private variable, which you should always mark your variables as private. The moment you make it private, even if they're the same package, you can't access it. So private variables can be used in the same class, irrespective of the package. It's on the same class. Now let me reiterate. When you talk about public, it can be used from anywhere. Okay, you can see this table. Public can be used from anywhere. Private can be used from the same class. Okay. Now, apart from public and private, we have two more. Okay, let's talk about those now. Now, if you talk about this A, if you don't mention private, something should be applicable, right? If it is not private, it is not public. What is it? So
बहुत थकान हो रही है यार, मैंने क्या हो गया, आँख में दर्द हो रहा है बहुत। उसके पहले से मैं फ़ोन चला रहा हूँ पागलों की तरह, 2 घंटे 10 मिनट हुआ इसके पहले से। खौफ, थक गया।
you.